Don't sit down. 3 times. Hallelujah! Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Hallelujah! Very good, but better. Hallelujah! Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Hallelujah! Well done. Please sit. Yeah. I hope that all of you will join me after the service downstairs in Mosley Hall, where there is a festive, lavish reception prepared for you. In normal times, I would invite you also to join us downstairs and outside of the parish garden. But when you get down there, you will notice that there is an uninvited intruder in the parish garden. You'll see what I mean. We have been blessed for the last few days with a wonderful preacher and a very, very good friend.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Boston has had a winter from hell. That's how we were greeted at Logan Airport by our cab driver. And you know, take that as a metaphor for the way life often is, but particularly in church. When I was a graduate student at Emory preparing for myself for church ministry, a friend of mine did a study of racial attitudes, and he devised a questionnaire in which he measured people's racial attitudes. He administered the questionnaire to the people in his little church in Georgia, and then he preached a series of 3 biblically illustrated sermons in which in some creative way he addressed the race problem, and then he administered the questionnaire to his congregation after the sermon series. Results? His congregation was 2.1 more racist after the sermons than before the sermons. And we thought, wow, this isn't going to be easy. I was there in a grand night, summer night, 1973, when your priest, Alan Warren, was ordained into the priesthood. The next morning, the Episcopal Church started losing members. And during his ministry, about 20% declined. Of course, he would say, we haven't lost as many as the Methodists. True. But I served the Methodist Church last year. I buttonholed one of our members. I said, George, we need you to be on the finance committee next year. Can we put you up for the finance committee? And he said, are you crazy? You know I suffer from depression. Are you trying to kill me? Put me on the church finance committee? It can be depressing. And what do you say? What do we say in response to the failure of funerals and the dead ends and the disappointment? Was there a funeral not long ago of a young man cut down by death in the prime of life, and the pastor during the sermon said, John had such a vibrant personality. We will always remember him, that John will live on in our memories. That is our chief hope. And I thought, I'm sorry, but you've got this vibrant, lively human being one day, and the next day, all we've got are memories. My memory is not that good. I don't think this will lift the luggage of death. Do we have nothing else to say? Well, we had put our faith in Jesus. His time among us began with angel songs and with a sense of expectancy. He told good stories. He attracted crowds. But then the authorities got organized. The Democratic mob turned against him. And we all joined together to shut him up in a place called Golgotha. We tried to console ourselves, saying, well, it was a good campaign when it finally lasted. We didn't get him elected Messiah, but we did the best we could, and we ought to get together occasionally and have a memorial meal for him or something, just to remember him. And then, in the dark, on Easter morning, we men sent the women out to the cemetery. Here, take these flowers out to the cemetery in memory of Jesus. And the women came back with news. Good news. These women were the first preachers, the first evangelists. And I remind you, the message of the angel was not, first of all, he is risen from the dead. Now you will get to see your loved ones when you die in heaven. That is an implication. But the first thing the angel said is, he is risen from the dead. Now you go tell somebody the news. N.T. Wright says that these women and their testimony are for him a kind of proof of the historicity of the resurrection. In that day, women were not allowed to give testimonial in a court of law. And yet, the Gospels say it was women who were the witnesses, who gave the testimony to the rest of us. Wright said, if there had been any way for the church to write these women out of the story and put this testimonial onto the lips of more authoritative men, we would have done it. Probably the women are given the news, Wright says, because it happened just that way. Let's get this straight. Christians are not better people than others. Any of you served on a church committee know that. Christians do not have a better program of action to help the world than the world already has. What we've got when it comes down to it is some news. News. Euangelion. Gospel. It means good news. God will have the last word. This thing isn't over until God says it's over. I got a friend who defines gospel in 8 words. God will get back what belongs to God. And to be a Christian means somebody who's supposed to give the news. We've had a tough year. It's been a winter of discontent. Tragedies, too many to mention. And it's enough to make you lose hope or seek some sort of temporary false consolation. But what if what the women said is true? That in the end, God wins. Thus, the early church spoke of Easter as the joke God played on the devil. Thanks to this church of the Advent, I'm the only Methodist in all of history that has ever participated in the Feast of Corpus Christi. Your pastor said, come on up here, try that, we'll see if you can handle it, and then we'll... So, I was up here, and I thought, wow, this is a midweek service. It's Boston. I mean, these are the people that are so well insulated from God by Hawthorne and Melville and William James. There was a crowd for the service. And I thought, oh, they look kind of New England, kind of standoffish, don't get too close. And yet, the service ended, and your pastor put the host in a monstrance, and we all marched right out those doors, right out of the Beacon Hill, right out in the traffic, marched around singing around the block. People were honking horns, driving cars into trees, and stumbling around. And I thought, well, at first they seemed like such nice people, but this crowd is defiant. There's a kind of clench-fisted, in-your-faceness about this church. And why is that? I think it's because you believe the women. He is risen. I got a student who graduated recently from the law school, and he's working with the prosecutor as assistant. And he was telling me that they had just gotten a conviction of a young man, and they had sent this 17-year-old to jail for 10 years. And he just told me, the lawyer, that he liked being a lawyer because he said, you get to share your faith sometimes. And I said, really? He said, yeah, law, the whole purpose of law is to get to the truth about things. And it's great because as a Christian, we got some truth too. It's different truth, but since we're all there gathered for truth, every now and then you get to tell people the truth. And I said, well, give me an example. And he said, well, like this young man we convicted. We got an agreement. He was going to go to jail for 10 years. We wouldn't have a trial. And so, as the prosecutor gathered his things and walked out, I said, could I have just a minute with him, please? And this young man, this strapping young man, just melted down into tears at the thought of going to jail like this. So when the prosecutor got out of the room, I took his hand and I said to him, listen to me. I know the truth about your life. I got some news for you. This is not over until God says it's over. God's got plans for you. This God, if he can raise the dead, he can redeem this. That's the truth. I was there in the hospital room when the doctor gave Mary the news. Her beloved husband of 30 years was at the end. And the doctor said, I'm sorry, there's nothing else we can do. This is the end. And I had prayer with Mary, and my prayer was, Lord, please help her to accept this situation and to bear this wound and go on. Well, he died. He died on Monday, Thursday morning. And we had the funeral at the church on Monday, Easter Monday. And I came out to greet the hearse and the family at the church door. And I came out, and out of the car came Mary, wearing a red hat and a red dress. And maybe I couldn't hide the amazement on my face. And I said, there you are. And she said, yeah, I know what you're thinking. And she said, Preacher, I thought about wearing, I've got a tasteful charcoal suit. I thought about wearing that for his funeral. But then I thought, you know, what the heck? Maybe what the women said was true.